Today I want to talk about the Moody Blues album A Question of Balance, which was released in 1970, just over 50 years ago. Now I bought this vinyl copy in about 1977 and I can't believe it's been so long. It's an album I still listen to and appreciate, and I want to talk about why that is. Now, A Question of Balance was the fifth of what are known as the Moody's Core 7 albums, which they released from 1967 to 1972. And the first three albums were really quite, I think, optimistic. The fourth album, To Our Children's Children's Children, was about the American moon landing program. And I think A Question of Balance reflects a more melancholy theme. The 1960s optimism, the hippie sort of psychedelic era was ending, and the world really, although the world's always in turmoil, it was really, that seemed to be almost the dominant theme. And the theme of A Question of Balance is really that is the concept. The Moody's obviously known for these 7 concept albums. Now, just before we talk about the actual music itself, I do want to talk about the cover, because it was actually a real experience, not just the music, to listen and experience an album in those days. And the Moody's were very insistent that they had these gatefold sleeves, these covers, and on the inside you can see a montage of photographs of the Moody Blues. But the outer cover was a painting by artist Phil Travers in this vertical format, unusual vertical format. It was actually really unsuccessful as a design because the cover's hollow, and if you hold it up like this, the record would fall out onto the floor. But it's a fantastic piece of artwork, and I think reflects the turmoil that the music deals with. So, and as well as the cover, another touch I love is the Moody's had their own record company, Threshold Records, and even the design of the label was another fantastic detail. That's the label from the mid to late 70s. And as well as that, while you were listening to the music, looking at the images on the cover, you also had a lyric sheet. And on A Question of Balance, you've got this double page lyric sheet reflecting the vertical format of the cover, and so it was a really immersive experience. Now, the music itself, the concept, A Question of Balance. The first and last songs were Question, written and sung by Justin Hayward, and the last song was The Balance, written by Graham Edge and Ray Thomas, and sung by the whole group. And that is the concept. It's about the world in turmoil. The Vietnam War was going on at that time. There was more realization of pollution and the way we're exploiting the world's resources needed to be questioned. Unfortunately, many of those issues are still with us today. We haven't found the answers. But actually the answer is A Question of Balance. So, on to the actual music. And there were 5 members of the Moody Blues. Singer and lead guitarist Justin Hayward, singer and bass player John Lodge, singer and flautist Ray Thomas, singer and keyboard and mellotron player Mike Pinder, and drummer Graham Edge. Now, as I said, the first four were all singers, all lead singers. Now, all five of them wrote songs and music, and four of them sang their songs as lead singers. So there was great variety in the Moody's music, and lots of styles as well. And that's perhaps why the Moody's really have never been pigeonholed, because they're not really just one style of music. They approached each song in the style that fitted it. So there's great variety. And of course you have such a wide variety of musical textures with the flute, the mellotron. On this album there's a bit of synthesizer for the first time. Acoustic and electric guitar from Justin Hayward, and John Lodge's very melodic bass as well, and very sympathetic, I think, drumming from Graham Edge. I think a very underrated drummer of the time. So all five wrote, and that meant that for an album of it's about 38 minutes and 40 odd seconds, there was great competition from them all to get their music on the album, and there's no time, no space for padding, and that means the album just flows through, it races through, especially as each song is mixed into the other. So you put on side one beginning with Question, and it just flows through, and before you know it, side one has ended. The Moody's left you wanting more, which is really good. And I think A Question of Balance is unusual for the Moody's in that I think it's the only album where you've got a side where there's one song by each of the members. So you kick off with Justin Hayward's Question, which you probably know from the single, almost protest song and love song reflecting the times, the Vietnam War. Then it flows into How Is It We Are Here by Mike Pinder, with, for then, quite futuristic mellotron and synthesizer sounds, and Hayward's amazing fuzz guitar. And this song deals with pollution and the exploitation of the Earth's resources. Then into a ballad by Ray Thomas, with flute and acoustic guitar. Very beautiful song. The tide rushes in, and which really demonstrates Ray's fantastic singing voice. And then Don't You Feel Small by drummer Graham Edge, and it's a very drum-based track, actually, sung by all the other members. Edge didn't sing. And finally, Tortoise and the Hare by John Lodge, a more rocky sort of number, as Lodge's numbers often are. And so that's side one, and you just race through, and before you know it, it's time to turn over the record and start side two, which starts with a fantastic song, one of my favourites by Hayward, It's Up to You, with an almost country feel to it. Then the Minstrel Song by John Lodge, in which I think most of the group sings on that number. My memory is going, so I have to remind myself. Dawning is the Day, another lovely song by Hayward. And then Melancholy Man, which is a really deep, melancholy song by Pinder, with mellotron and some synthesizer on, and yeah, it's really quite heavy. And then it finishes with almost a spoken word to music piece called The Balance. Words written by Graham Edge, and the music by Ray Thomas. Now, a lot of people were critical of the Moody's for their poetry and spoken word. but I actually find, listening to it, there is so much feeling in there, and that they really were. Maybe it's naivety, maybe trying to be honest and writing about what you feel, and sometimes when you do this, maybe it does sound a bit trite, but once you listen to it, and I listened to it just a couple of days ago, it really is about having a sense of balance, about looking at ourselves and seeing what we are and how we act and how we ought to act towards others and also towards the environment. And so thematically, it is actually a very, very relevant album today, 50 years on. So that's the vinyl version. A CD version with a remixed version, overseen by Justin Hayward, was issued in 2006, and this has the album on plus some extra tracks, original versions of some of the numbers, plus an extra track by Mike Pinder, which never made the album. Sounds very much a work in progress, called Mike's Number One. So that's the track listing for the CD. It was the original was produced by Tony Clark, often known as the Sixth Moody, back in the 60s and early 70s, and great engineering at Decca by Derek Varnels. It remains a favourite of mine, and if you do look it up, I think it's quite representative of the Moodies. A lot of variety, and they were fantastic writers, singers and musicians, and they certainly mean a lot to me, and I hope they do to you.